So having framed all of that then, and understanding that that actually change, therefore, big C, big T, change transformation things, is not something that we ought to be overly scared of. But we do need to provide a roadmap, for the lack of a better word, which helps both groups understand what journey we're on, and the fact that there is a process. People in the operations side, who need that certainty, need to know that there are people looking at this saying, we're not, I come back to my climbing Kilimanjaro example. We know we're climbing Kilimanjaro, but some personalities need to know that we're not just wandering around aimlessly trying to figure out what it is. And it's a lot of fun for for one personality style, the innovator style, which is just like, hey, let's see what happens. That can really cause a lot of emotional stress for the other group of people.
So tell me about the Kilimanjaro example. I'm intrigued.
So the Kilimanjaro example that I use is it's all about this idea that you have a clear goal. The clear goal is to reach the top of Kilimanjaro. It's something that my wife and I did back in 2017. What was interesting was as we left the gate to go into the park, one of the gates, we know that there are 7 routes up Kilimanjaro that you could take. And we had chosen one based on our understanding of our own experience, of our own capabilities, and so on. But the truth was that until we started walking, we did not know what the pace of the group was going to be. So would it take us 5 days or 8 days to get to the top? Very much dependent on the route on the pace of the people. Also dependent on the route that we took, and the reaction that our bodies were going to have to altitude and so forth. So what we knew was the goal was to get to the top. And even though we started with a path, a particular route that we were going on, we knew that we needed to rely on our guides, our coaches, if you will, to adapt the route and the time scale and everything according to how the team, us walkers, were reacting to what was in front of us. And it is, there are all sorts of connections there with team velocity and all sorts of things like that. There were other things as well that came up. For example, there are certain routes which require a certain type of scrambling, and other scrambling up sort of, fairly sheer bits of rock and stuff, and others which don't. And in order to, the route that we had selected was one that did involve this. Of course, anybody who suffers from vertigo, it's almost next to impossible to get them up that. And so if you've got somebody in your team that has that, then you need to know that early enough to try it. But you also need to give yourself the space to experiment in, to say, well, actually, if we do the following things, can we still get up there? But the point being that things were changing all the time around us. We set a goal to get to the camp by a certain time, and we would be 2 hours behind that time frame. Now, does that lead to panic and know we're never going to make it? Or does that lead to, okay, let's adjust our goals, let's adjust the roadmap that we're on to determine how we can achieve this goal? Because the goal doesn't change. Getting to the top of Kilimanjaro doesn't change. What changes is what we have to do and how we're going to get there. That's sort of just an analogy that I have found to help explain the difference between an agile mindset and a non-agile mindset, because the non-agile mindset will say, I'm sorry, we didn't hit the milestone, we didn't get to the camp at the time that we said, we can't possibly make this, it's all going to, it's all going to pot. Whereas what you do is whereas what we did was we use that information to say, right, what do we need to adjust to help us keep going? Does that sort of make sense?
It does make sense.
It makes sense in my head.
Yeah. And I've got 2 thoughts on that. There's almost like a lean bit of thinking there as well, is that you can only go as fast as the slowest person in the group.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of what Goldratt talks about in his book, The Goal, and he has this story of a bunch of Boy Scouts, and they're all on this trail to get from A to B.
Mm-hmm.
And they start off by everyone just going at their own pace, and the slowest person is kind of dawdling at the back, and the line just gets stretched out, which isn't very effective.
No.
So what they do, they realize, okay, we can only go as fast as the slowest person. Let's put the slowest person at the front. Mm-hmm. Really simple. And so that's from a system point of view, I guess that means is that what is the constraint? What is the limiting factor? And we can only go as fast as the smallest part in the system. And if we want to be able to optimize and improve the whole team or the whole process, let's say, we need to be able to improve the slowest component. So let's encourage the slowest person to be able to, let's coach and support them and train them to go a bit faster.
Exactly.
Yeah. The other thought I had is with your Kilimanjaro example is one which talks about predict and control in the future, is that we predict every single part of the trail, every single terrain, every single kind of contour and incline, and we think we're going to get there by 2 a.m. the following day or whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. And we're going to control our environment, which is absolutely foolhardy. Mm-hmm. And Kilimanjaro's, is not a route that people have taken. So to predict and control and have an ordered response is not wise. And having a more adaptive approach and okay, let's see, is far better. Yeah. And I think that speaks to slide 5, where the ordered approach and the adaptive approach is appreciate that we don't know, but let's see what to do in the first morning or whatever it might be. Ask different questions, scan the environment, have different diverse voices because there's a team effort to get to the peak. Whereas the ordered approach is one where we set expectations and it's we metabolize uncertainty as a threat. Yes,
I think that's part of the important thing is that without the guides who had the whole picture in their heads, without them saying no problem, we can adjust. And this is where I think leadership is such a vital role. Is that you need those leaders who are able to say, look, hey, it doesn't, to use your scouts example, it doesn't matter, but we do need to change things, otherwise we will cause other problems other than just being slow. So you need, and we needed to know that those guides were, had experience of going up this thing a few times, and so they knew how to adapt to the terrain and so on. And obviously the terrain itself is shifting with erosion and all sorts of other things. But it's how we deal with uncertainty, because too easy just to turn around and go back after the first day. I think we were something like 2 hours late on the first day. And if you extrapolate that out, you realize you're probably going to be, something in the region of 2 days outside your, outside the scope of what you're trying to do, which was not possible because people had flights and so forth to get home on that had already been booked. So if we were just amongst ourselves without a guide and without some perspective, it would be too easy after the first or even the second day just to turn around and say, we're not going to make it, we just don't have the time, which was an interesting part of that experience as well.
Absolutely.